All right, I think we are live. So I'm assuming all of you can hear us. Very, very happy Saturday morning. My name is Sasidhar. I'm part of the GradeRight team. And here is Utkarsh, Utkarsh from University of Colorado. And he is here. We both are going to discuss something useful today. But before that, I just want to introduce myself and then introduce Utkarsh. I'm a graduate of BITS Pilani and also a graduate of University of Pennsylvania. And I came back to India to set up this company called GradeRight, which works with students specifically going abroad and help them save costs. Without much ado, let me start introducing Utkarsh. Utkarsh is from BML Munjal University. He did his electrical and computer engineering. And from there on, straight after his bachelor's, went on to do his, electrical and computer engineering course, master's degree at University of Colorado. He is right now live from the campus, from his, room. And we are glad to, talk about something many students have been asking us as alumni or as people at GradeRight. What we have been asked is, how do we really select the offers between, say, 2 or 3 offers that you have? Which one to go for? How do we really evaluate them? So as people who have done this in the past, we thought it could just be useful to get on a webinar and talk about this. And then we, throughout the webinar session, I might be asking a few questions to Utkarsh and a few things that he might share about each of those questions. So keep your questions popping in on the live chat on the right side of this video and make sure that you ask anything that is on your mind, that is something specific to your profile. Whatever you want to ask, this is the space to ask, and we will try to address that, as much as we can within the time that we have on the webinar. So thank you for making the time and being here. And we'll make sure that it's at least useful. Thank you. So let's start it off. Utkarsh, could you, briefly talk about, yourself, what you've been through and what you're going through now and how exciting it is at University of Colorado?
Of course. My name is Utkarsh Trivedi. I'm originally from Solan, Himachal Pradesh. I did my bachelor's in ECE from BML Munjal University. And right now I'm doing my master's in computer and energy engineering in CS at University of Colorado, Boulder. My focus area right now, focus areas are embedded systems and DSP. And Colorado is a very cold state. It's snowing right now, but I love hiking, and I'm in the music club, and my hobbies are to play guitar and play drums, which we get funded for by the club, by the way. So it's going amazing, and I hope to be of help to all of you who are live right now.
Fantastic. So, to just start off, could you help us understand what you have gone through in terms of, your admit offers, and how you were evaluating your own options, back at the time that you were making these decisions?
Okay.
So what are the universities that you are considering, and how did you pick University of Colorado?
Okay. I was slightly late in my preparation. So ideally you should have given your GRE by June or July, and then you have to start applying immediately because all priority deadlines, they almost end around October, November. I gave my GRE in September end, I think, and I got not a good enough score, but I was still not decided exactly where to go. And based on that, so I got it. I applied to University of Colorado Boulder. I applied to UC Davis, and I applied to University of Texas Arlington. So I chose like one ambitious, one safe, and one medium. Unlike what most of the recommenders say that apply to multiple of them. And I got admits from CU Boulder and Texas Arlington. And I was late. I wanted to apply to other universities also, but I had the deadlines, unfortunately, or there were like one issue or another, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money in applications. In foresight, I think that was a slightly wrong decision. I should have applied earlier and to more number of universities. The biggest problem that I faced, well, the challenges that I faced was while doing research also for these three universities when I was finalizing them, uh, there were a lot of web pages that I had to scan through. The problem is you don't get consolidated information anywhere on the web. You have to sift through like hundreds of pages to get like decent enough idea about every single university. And even the university's official websites would not have like one single sheet with all the information that you require. You'll have to go page hopping for a long time to get that research. So that was one big issue that I really faced during my applications.
So the first thing is, if you have admits and if you think there are universities that you could have applied to, and if there are rolling admission processes at these universities, or if the applications are still open, you advise them to apply to more universities if there is a dream university still open. That's
of course
one point. Okay. And because, that's something that you wish you could have done that, you would have done that in the past. That's useful. Thank you. And in terms of, many of the students would ask, there is University A and University B. How do I really compare the quality, and what is quality, in terms of, we understand that for each student, quality is different, right? I might be very focused on financial outcomes, and whereas you might be focused on learning and research. So in your perspective, what was your focus? What was your definition of quality?
For me, I wanted a university that which had a lot of focus on research, but still wasn't very expensive. So so that was my, obviously that the quality is like a very subjective term, and it depends on the personal preference of everyone. And you have to ask yourself this question on what do you want to get out of your master's. And once you have that answer, then you'll be able to better evaluate universities. So for me, research was very important, and Colorado Boulder has been at the heart of the telecommunications sector. This university has a very reputed telecom department, and a lot of research goes into that field. So that was a very important factor for me. And for me, because research was important, how I evaluated was I checked the profiles of the professors. So this is what might be helpful. If you're applying to a certain department, just scan through a few profiles of the prominent professors from that, the people who lead like research groups and labs in that department, and sift through their CVs. You can just check how many these papers have they published, how much funding have they got for their labs, because they generally provide that in their CVs, and it's available on their official websites. And they also have wherever their PhD students placed, and all that information might be a good indicator of comparing different universities, for example, in research.
Understood. And in terms of, if someone wants to define their quality based on, say, learning on campus or safety, there could be other parameters. So could you help us understand what other parameters that you think, some other students have been, using to evaluate these universities?
Of course. Like you would all have read the general parameters like acceptance rate, what's the tuition fee, but some parameters that were useful for me and that might be useful for all of you who are trying to evaluate. First one is like departmental ranking. So I would say even more than the overall ranking of your university, focus on the departmental ranking. Because you'll be interacting with your department for the majority of your time. So it's very important to see the departmental ranking of your university. Even if it's not a great university, but it has a great department, I would still advise you to prefer that over a big university with a lesser known department.
Right. I could resonate with that because when I was choosing my universities, I was comparing University of Michigan, I was comparing with universities like Harvard and University of Pennsylvania. For the course that I was going for, which is higher education and international higher education, and the research that I was looking at is more of a global research. And so I had to dig deeper into departmental rankings or the performance at the department level. So for example, University of Pennsylvania, in my case, had faculty consulting governments, and there is a separate department or a consulting wing very active at University of Pennsylvania, which I couldn't find in other universities. So for me, that was very exciting, and that's one of the reasons why I chose University of Pennsylvania.
Of course, it's very important to look at departmental rankings.
Right.
I would say is that you can also look at the gradient of the ranking. So just like compare how has the ranking changed over the previous few years. If you see a trend that it's increasing, it's always a good indicator for a university that they are working hard to improve the ranking of a department. They're investing in infrastructure, getting more faculty, getting more funding. That also is a lesser known indicator, but you should always see the ranking and how it's changed over the last 5 years per se. Another indicator would be a very interesting indicator that I found after coming here is that you should always prefer universities that have interior towns close to it. So if your university is in a non-industrial region, it's slightly harder to get into internships and jobs because they want people who are local to the area. So that is why the California system universities are very preferred because they give like a slight edge over finding jobs and internships to their students. For me at Colorado Boulder, there are embedded software companies that are close by, which have their offices like Qualcomm, Google, Micron, to name a few, Seagate, Western Digital. They all have their hubs close by, so they actively hire from the embedded systems department. So you should always try to go to a university that has close as local industrial hubs of the sector that you're looking for to apply to and have them. Like Oregon has Intel's main center, so they hire from all universities actively in VLSI department. So that is also an indicator that I have found out that is very helpful after coming here. So I think it'll be important for all the people who are watching this to know about it beforehand.
Right. I think it's a great point. And also, whoever is interested in getting placed right after the program, I think it would be a good thing to consider, so that because in the US, the placements happen mostly through networking, and you meet people, you connect with the campus, casually, and then you build your network and then build your relationship. And so you would request for, say, opportunities. And if at all there is a job opening at Qualcomm, for instance, and you meet someone from Qualcomm, on campus because of some event, you could request them for a reference once you built a reasonable, relationship with them. Unlike the Indian system wherein there is placement cohort and there is timely placements in the first 2 weeks, 1 month of the semester, and all the companies would rush and actually get into hiring from campus. So it's a very, very big difference that many of us won't realize until we are in the university and actually experiencing that. So you should be ready as viewers, as students who are going there. I think they should be ready to face that, I would say, placement culture shock, and make sure that they aggressively market themselves, network as much as possible.
Yeah, of course, I totally resonate with that point of view. So at my previous university, there was a big onus on the university to get everybody placed. Back in India, where I did my undergrad for, there was a placement season which companies used to visit the college. In the US, what happens is the onus is on you to get a job. They provide you with the right tools. They organize career fairs. They organize networking events. But you have to be responsible for getting a job for yourself.
Wow.
So they routinely organize these events from like companies like Qualcomm, Apple, Facebook, which gives talks about what departments they're hiring from. So after that talk, you can go talk to the people who have come. You can interact with them, link with them on LinkedIn, and then build a network. And that's how you get referrals and you apply to jobs. That's the general paradigm in the US. Absolutely, totally agree with you.
Perfect. And especially when there is a university, for example, which is not in the industrial area, but the department rankings are actually quite good. The funding for the department is good in terms of the area of interest, but it's not in the industrial area. Do you recommend going to a university with that? Or do you recommend a slightly lower departmental ranking, but still going to a place where there is industrial connection on, with the campus?
A slightly obvious answer would be that it depends on the person and what he wants. But
Right.
If you think about it, you have to consider a variety of things. So just in a sense, you have to see what like before you go to a program, you should see the coursework that your department offers also. That, and look at the kind of jobs that you would ideally want to. So this thing you can do right now, just open the job profiles that you're looking for. Say for example, in Google, you're looking for software developer profile. See
Right.
what kind of skill set they're looking for, and then you can choose your and tailor it to get all those skill sets by the end of your 2 years. And then how you compare your offers would be uh, is, that is more on you in a sense. If you have industrial connections nearby, one thing I can tell you is look on LinkedIn if there are people in the companies that aspire to be in and who have been alumni from that university.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a
If you
good
can
way to
find a
apply.
decent
We're trying to see how best we can
number
run
of
analytics around that.
university in the company that you're looking for, and I don't think that's a big issue.
Got it. So there is some fluctuation on the internet, I suppose, Utkarsh, but you're back on live. Can you hear us? Okay. All right. Let's assume that there will be, it's all fine now. And, what else do you think we should consider? Because we were having a chat and you were referring to, say, part-time jobs on campus. That I want to touch maybe at the end of this list, because it connects with the tuition fees, living, etc. But another important point is could be weather that you recommended.
Oh yeah.
So how do you explain that?
The weather in US is very different to what you'll find in India. Like if you go to some place like Arizona and Texas, it's extremely hot. If you move to the East Coast or you live in Colorado, it's going to be extremely cold. Like uh, to give you an example, this last year our convocation for our seniors happened in May 7, and it snowed heavily that day, and it snows from September to May, and it's a big shock. Even though I'm from Himachal and I'm used to cold, I'm not used to it being this cold because it snows for 6 months there. So be ready to face like extreme weather conditions while coming here. So even that might be a very big factor. If you are averse to cold, so try to prefer the west coast. That's generally more moderate temperature, and the data for like the yearly lows and highs and the average temperatures are easily available. So always consider that too before choosing a university.
And look at the number of months it is below zero or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right. And also, I think those who are looking at universities outside US, they could also consider this factor and see how friendly you are to different weather variations. Some people are actually okay with any kind of weather. They are
Yeah.
focused on what they are going through, and if the departmental rankings and the promises that the website makes and it's luring them, then they would keep aside the weather. So it is also dependent on what is more important for you.
Yeah, of course. You can obviously before leaving for a US university, taking a decision, you just try out going to a hill station and seeing if you are fond of snow or not, because it snows a lot in majority of the colleges, around majority of colleges in the US, and that's like a big issue. Like I have friends who enjoyed the first time it snowed, but then every time since then they hated the sight of snow.
Right. And sometimes we have these snowstorms wherein for 3-4 days you are locked in your room mostly.
Oh yeah, we have these days in which the university sends out a mail in the morning at 8 a.m. that all classes are cancelled because of snowstorms. So you should be prepared for those days also.
Right. So I was in Philadelphia, and I definitely faced that once or twice throughout about the 3 month or 4 month window. But when I moved to Albany, which is further north up in upstate New York, that was even worse. So, just a heads up for those who are getting to the extreme temperatures, just make sure that, you are ready for the weather. If you are looking for winter wear and all, those are the things that, you would get best once, like you should shop it in the country,
US.
the US
Yeah.
itself.
Don't bring warm clothes from India. They don't work here. You have to buy clothes that are meant for this weather and
Right.
get them here.
Right. Absolutely. So let's come back to the topic of, say, the internships or the part-time jobs, and how that plays into evaluating different admits. How do you see that?
Uh, I did a research internship under a professor in my summer, but many of my friends did internships, and the search for that begins almost when you join in. So our batch started around an end of August in fall, I think, and I clearly remember a few of my friends in September mid already had internships lined up for the next summer in companies like Qualcomm and all. So it's a very fast process, and it really helps if you have slight experience before coming here. Like I was a fresh grad, I had come directly after my bachelor's, so it was slightly harder. But I really wanted to do a research under a professor, so that ended up well for me. But in general, you should always I would advise that try to have some research experience before coming here, or have some industrial experience. That always helps in looking for jobs. So you can apply to similar profiles, and they would know that they don't have to train you a lot during that 2 months to get some decent work done out of you, and you can earn
So,
quite a lot
right.
from
So
the internships.
question related to that, maybe that's in the minds of some of the viewers could be, what kind of internships are we talking about? Are we talking about internships that are semester long and full-time internships, or are we talking about working on campus? And are all universities okay with full-time internship for an entire semester? And is it a good thing to do?
That depends on university to university in general, but our university allowed like full semester internships. In first year, I don't think you're allowed to work outside during the first year of your masters. In the summer, after you, if you suppose you start in fall, so next summer you are allowed to apply for CPT, and then you can do a 3 months internship. So like one of my roommates was working in Trimble, another one worked in an antivirus company, Webroot. Two of my friends went to Qualcomm San Diego for internships, and with that you can generally cover up, say, 1 or 2 semesters of fee very easily.
Perfect.
But I that doesn't pay as much. It's like hourly salary, but then you do get valuable research experience. I want to pursue my PhD after 2 years, so that was helpful for me.
Perfect. And on-campus internships are only available, for students. Sorry, it's the other way. The students can only access on-campus internships during the program unless it is an off-campus internship, which is at a different organization with the permission of the university. And if you're
Yeah,
taking off-campus
it has to
internship,
be
sorry, go
it
ahead.
has to be it has to be related to your department. So that's like the important thing. You can't work you have to get an internship in your field of study, and you have to justify it to the international students office in your university, and then they approve that CPT. That's
Okay, so you
complementary
have to
practical
justify it
training
to the
period that's you're allowed.
International Student
Yeah.
Office on
Yeah,
campus.
and in general, during your general semester, you are allowed to work 20 hours per week, but that has to be on campus. You cannot work off campus. So you
Right.
can work
So,
in labs. You can TA for a professor. So that's like a very common job.
right. So for those who are evaluating different universities, if internships or earning through internships is an important factor, you need to make sure that those flexibilities are present in each of
Yes.
the campuses that you're evaluating. Another important data point is that there are a number of scholarships that are, or number of fellowships or assistantships that are announced at each campus that are available in different, kinds of data sources. It is available online in different websites. So you could look for that data, number of assistantships that were announced last year, number of assistantships, that were announced 2 years back, and how is that varying among the three admits. So that will tell you, whether there are 200 internships available on campus or are there 20 internships available on campus. That would also speak to the probability of you getting an assistantship based on the number of people who are on campus. And that would help you figure out whether you need to really depend on earning through the assistantship when you go there. Because if the possibility is low, then you could get a sense of it even before actually going there and figuring out that you're not getting an internship. So there are some universities which put up that data. And if you have any difficulty in getting that to that data, reach out to us. We put together something interesting around assistantship probability.
Yeah. Another thing that might be helpful is all the universities have like an on-campus job portal that you get access to after you get like official email login from the university. So I would suggest that you guys look at it very early, because they get filled up very fast before the start of the semester. So try to look at on-campus job portals once you get the access to the email ID and your identity key for the university, and then apply early. So don't be surprised if because many of my friends also worked in the dining jobs. They helped an office operate. They worked at receptions in the first year, because you're not hired as a TA in the very first semester in general. They expect you to take that course, do well in it, get an A before you are even considered to be a TA to be in a course. So till then, many of my friends worked in a dining job, and after like 1 year, they became TAs or they got internships in Qualcomm, and that's how they are supporting themselves right now.
Right. That's another important factor. Apply early, and you could get a sense of the number of positions available if you ask the admissions team, for a view of or guidance on where to look at those job postings. And also remember that not all job postings will be put out the moment the faculty realizes that they need an RA or a graduate assistant. They won't generally put out on the graduate assistantship portal unless like for a month or so. There is some internal process that will take. So you should always assume that there are some more that will come. Keep a check on those platforms regularly. That's an important point, to make sure that you apply early and get a chance to get an admit. But by viewing the assistantship portals and where you can apply for all the admit offers that you have, you could get a comparative view on which one is offering more assistantships, what kind of jobs that you like more on campus, and you could get a feel of those things upfront.
Yeah, I totally agree with what he said. Like I was a TA for a semester, and the professor realized in the first week that his workload is too much. So then he just asked around to see if he could find people who had taken this course already and who had an A. And somehow I got to hear about it. I went to him to have a talk, and he gave me the TA right there and then. There was like no formal process that was done for that course. So we always have a positive mindset, and don't be afraid to ask questions and see if somebody is willing to do some work. You can even try emailing professors right now and see if they are looking for somebody in RA or some lab to help out with them. One big advice I like to give you is that just try to research what kind of labs and professors are there in the university, in a department, and see what active research that they're doing right now, or what experiments they're doing right now, and see how you can contribute to them in what way. Like if you are a good MATLAB programmer, you can say, I can run MATLAB simulations for you. If how can you make their job easier in a sense, and try to write them a mail and see if that would be helpful, or if they can offer you a TA or an RA even before you go to a university.
Right. That is super important. I always talk about that. Thanks for bringing that up. Lack of proactivity would mean you losing the opportunities. And always, once you have an indication that you may mostly go to a particular university, if you have an admit, and faculty would respond to the emails in general if you have an admit.
Yeah.
So use that opportunity, state that upfront that you have an admit and that you're looking to work with them, and explain in the email what all you are looking for by exactly pointing at how you can make their lives easier. So for that, you need to really know about what their research work is, what the department is doing, what the center is doing, and then connect with your skill set and with your past experience, and invest 30 minutes, 1 hour to write that email. It's worth it.
Yeah, like one of my friends just he was a CS engineer, but he could not find any research topics in which he could contribute. So he just mailed the professor saying that I can help you with Photoshop graphic design for your research posters and papers, and he got an RF for that too. They're looking for anybody who can make their life easier, and people are always looking for TAs for their course because they don't want to correct papers and spend their time on trivial matters of a course. They just want to teach, and they want to focus on their research. So always don't be afraid to throw an email to a professor. Most of them would not reply, but the people who reply will be super helpful. Always remember that.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to the next question from there. I think we are at a sweet point to talk about what are the bad choices that you think students, could make, and what you experienced in your past, and any bad choices that you think often students would make.
From my experience, I can tell you can always take coursework that has very difficult workload or curriculum. Like in India, we are used to having a fixed curriculum for most of the engineering branches, at least, and then in the end, you are given 1 or 2 electives. In US, everything is an elective in general for most of the courses. So when I came here first, my viewpoint was that I'm used to doing 7 courses a semester. So, and here I saw everybody taking 2 courses. Didn't understand why is that happening. That what is the point of taking only 2 courses? So I ended up taking 3, and the 3 courses I took at random without consulting anybody. And in the beginning, it was okay. So what happens is you are allowed to try courses for the first 2 weeks before you have to finalize what courses are there for the entire semester. There's like a drop deadline in which you can still add and remove courses based on if there is availability. So I took up 3 courses. All of them rose exponentially in their workload after the midterm. So till then I was sailing through, but then immediately it became super hard for me to manage my time at all. So the projects became very hectic. The workload was too much, and I ended up messing up my GPA for the first semester for one course because of that. So you should always try to consult with a senior on the workload for a course if they have already taken it, and always take that into consideration before you select on a coursework. That was a big mistake I did.
I think if we talk about the evaluation of offers and how this overlaps there, some students would assume that, oh, in this university, I can complete it in 1 year or 1.5 years instead of staying for all 2 years. So you should be aware that there is a reason why it is structured in that way. And if you're taking an assistantship alongside and you're thinking that I've done 7 courses or 5 courses or 6 in India, please don't expect the same rigor to continue. It will be intense. And so it will be very hard to keep up the pace on the curriculum and do an assistantship that is even worse and complete it in 1 year or 1.5 year. So, some students look at this 1 year timeline or 1.5 year timeline and then say that, my cost of living for the last semester would be saved if I complete it early. That's a good point, but just be aware that you should be prepared to plan well, focus more, do intense hard work to actually complete them. Or talk to specific alumni from that university and understand what is the real deal there. And because at University of Pennsylvania, for example, it's a standard to take 3 courses in a semester, and I took 4. And I did an assistantship in parallel. So I exactly understand where you're coming from. And I knew that semester was hard for me to go through. So, it's important to just think about these aspects as well and don't just assume. I think another bad choice that I see some students making is is around the way that they give importance to the hearsay around us, instead of looking at hard statistics and data. What I see is, some people around you might be applying to or might have applied and got an admit to a certain university where you also got an admit, and you just could assume that it's a popular choice just because 3 or 4 people that you spoke with already got an admit and their GRE scores are higher. So please don't assume anything based on just hearsay. There is evident data online. And for example, regarding placements, many people come to me with many universities. We talk about these admits. And there are universities which are not in the top 500, the very good GRE scores, and they would still think that this is actually the best for their profile, just because of there is a small group of people around them who also believe that. So sometimes you just talk about it and you assume that it is true. So evaluate your opinions and back it up with facts and data. There are average salaries available. You can ask the admissions team about specific placement ratios. In India, we have this constraint, I suppose. When someone gives us an admit offer, we think that they have done a favor to you. Just make sure that you have no such misconception. They are not doing a favor to you by giving you an admit. It's your rightful choice to evaluate them as hard as you want, as much as they actually evaluated you on your application. So go hard on the evaluation, ask every question that you have before finalizing the admit, especially if you are assuming that they're great placements, they're good, anything, faculty, anything that you, or research that you are assuming. Make sure there is data that is backing it.
Yeah. Before I forget, there's this scheme in like most universities that your enroll is like free, the 4th and 5th course. You're not allowed to enroll more than 5 courses at any point of time.
Sorry, Utkarsh, could you repeat yourselves? I think we lost you for a second. You are referring to a scheme that many universities will have.
Yeah. Most universities have this scheme that if you enroll to 3 courses, the 4th and 5th course additional will be free for a semester. So they don't charge you tuition for more credits than 15 in general. So, but trust me, nobody I know takes 4 courses in a semester, even though it will be free of cost, because the workload in university is huge. From my experience, I can tell you that the courses are not more difficult than what you have done in India. The coursework won't be say incomparably harder. Just that the workload for the same course will be a lot. Even though your timings will be very flexible. I only go to college like only on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That too for 3-4 hours, and then I'm done for the whole week. For every course, I am given a weekly assignment, a coding assignment, a report to write, a quiz, a final project, and 3 midterms. So there is a lot to do, and managing workload is really the biggest challenge that you'll face after coming here, not the actual studies itself.
Right, absolutely. And in terms of placements and careers and how the outcomes are for each university, the average salaries, etc. If there are admits, 2 admits that a student has, one University A and University B, for example. University A, let's assume, it requires a total cost of about 40 lakhs. And University B has a total cost of 60 lakhs. But University A, has, say, X amount of outcomes. Or for example, if you're evaluating, whatever is important for you, research or placements or average salary, there is X outcome that this provides. There is University B with 60 lakhs of cost. It is giving you X plus Y. So do you think it is, always a good bet, if 60 lakhs is affordable for someone, to always get to that incremental Y and get to a better university? And because in the long term, some people argue that there's 10-20 lakhs of investment because of the University B being in the industrially connected area, or having better departmental rankings, it could be worth it. So how do you evaluate this, and what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, if you can afford it, then you can obviously look at what is the increment. Because see, if you start with the higher salary, your increments will be on that big first amount. So you can always evaluate the return on investment by finding out the time it will take for you to recover that extra amount of money that you'll be paying to go to a better college based on the main salary, because those statistics are meant for that reason itself. You can just take how much is y a percentage of the extra 20 lakhs that you are spending, and how much time it would take for you to recover it back. So just take it as a return on investment question, and you can evaluate it like that. But I would, if it was me, I would personally, if I can afford it, I would obviously prefer the 60 lakh university, 60 lakh, the one with the more initial cost, but it has a higher payoff afterwards.
Right. Because it is basically it's only one degree that we do in our lives,
Yeah.
and the better admit offers from better universities, then if we try to make sure that we meet that. And in this regard, how we evaluate affordability is also important. It's not that you need to have cash of 60 lakhs to really go and be ready to give it to the university. It's about, if you're putting 60 lakhs, how is the return? And the two parameters, the return part and whether there is someone who can lend you this 60 lakhs of amount for the better return that you can get for the entire life. So it's a complicated question in one way, but it is simpler if you just ask lenders about whether you have a 60 lakh capability or not, or a 50 lakh capability, because there's some savings that you might be putting in. So is there an additional amount that any of the lenders would be happy to give you? Because I must tell you, this is also a misconception that I see. A lot of institutions, a lot of lenders or banks, they are happy to give you more money if they see that you will actually earn it back and pay them back. At the end of it, they're also looking at, similar outcomes, that is better financial outcomes like most of the students may have. So always don't assume, always ask the banks and lenders on what your eligibility is for a different university. It would vary from university to university. If I name a university which is 800th rank university to a bank versus say 100th rank university, it makes a huge difference for them to really give you more money at a lesser interest rate if they can, ask you to go to 100th rank university. So it's in their interest too that they give you more money. And specifically,
of course,
do you have, how did you fund your master's, and, in terms of how you went through the evaluation of cost, how did you evaluate that? Is it a similar logic that 60 lakhs is always better?
So for me, I initially applied to the universities that were public universities, that was like government and state funded. Did not apply to private universities. So uh, Texas Arlington is UT system, California UC Davis is California system, Colorado is Colorado system. So they're all subsidized in some nature. So the tuition fee is generally comparatively lesser than say the private universities. So that was my first concern. So once I applied, I did get some scholarship, and I also got a TA, not in the first semester, but in the third semester. Also worked with many professors, so I was able to fund most of it. But then I did lend money from one of my uncles who lives in the US right now.
Got it.
But many of my friends took bank loans, and they were generally they do tell me from the experience that it's a lot of formality that they have to go through, a lot of unnecessary trips to the bank that they have to go through, a lot of bureaucracies that they have to follow in offices that's not required. So that was a hassle for them in general.
Right. In fact, one of the things that we ended up realizing over the last couple of years in the attempt to work on these education funding for students is that there are banks which are happy to give students non-collateral loans. And I'm talking about non-collateral loans when we are talking about finalizing the admit offers, because there is a strong link to it. What I recommend is for each and every university the student is actually applying or got an admit from, I would recommend applying for non-collateral loans in the market. And because non-collateral loans are basically nothing but banks betting on your future income.
Yeah.
And they invested a lot of resources to analyze the data, look at what has happened, say, for 1 lakh alumni in the past, and then figure out what is the trend and where should they bet their money. That is all in the back end of the banks. And students could actually utilize that feedback that is data driven by just asking the bank that you have 3 admits or 2 admits, and ask them to give non-collateral loan offers for both these universities. If you sense a difference in the non-collateral loan offers from the same bank, that one is at 10%, another is at 9%, that means the 9% university is actually a better bet.
Yeah, because the bank is looking at it as a less risky option for them.
So that is how students can actually utilize that. And you could, to make it easier, what we did is we actually analyzed the top 500 universities at GradeRight, and we made them public. So anyone who is going to any of the 500 universities within, computer science fields, mechanical, electrical, etc., you could search on GradeRight.com for any of these universities, and you will see a program specific page wherein you could evaluate what is the total cost, what is the outcome, what is the average salary, other than financial outcomes, what is the academic outcomes that the university is known for, so that you have a clear view on earn back period and return of investment. And then in the same page, we put out number of non-collateral loans that the program is eligible for, and also the loan probability and the interest rate ranges. So you, with a glimpse at it, you could also get a sense of which one is better compared to the other. But always, it's an indicative data that we put out there. So the specific profile feedback from lenders is the best bet, and we'll be able to get you that feedback, for free, and get you to the best option without any fees, just by filling a short form. So I would advise students to do that and utilize the bank's infrastructure and data to finalize the admits. That will help you get to the data that we as individual students don't have.
Yeah.
Right. So Utkarsh, the 10 more minutes left. It would be wonderful if there are any other questions. And there's one question about explaining what actually GradeRight is and what are the demands to be fulfilled by the aspirants in return. So GradeRight is a firm that makes sure that your return on investment is the highest. For example, you have 3 admits. You could evaluate these 3 admits based on bank's feedback at GradeRight. You could evaluate what are the best options that you have for each of the admits that you have, and get to the real cheapest option in the market. So we built a system wherein we actually get feedback from about 40 different banks, so 35 to 40 banks that are giving education loans in this country, and not just in the country but also outside, but to Indian students. And we created a platform wherein you could compare all of them in one go and get your best offers. 80% of the students just assume that, oh, I know someone in the bank, I know that this is the cheapest because my uncle said that, my father said this. And so you would end up going to a certain, maybe couple of banks. What we realized is 80% of such students still lose at least 3 lakhs and up to even 23 lakhs. So there is a huge scope of saving, and that is why we created the system wherein it's a transparent marketplace kind of thing. It should be as easy as booking a flight ticket for you to actually take a loan and get feedback on your profile and utilize it smartly to finalize your admission offers. So that is what GradeRight is about, making sure that students save as much money as possible. And we also have a data science platform that would evaluate what is important for you as a person. Is safety important, or is having Indian students on the campus important, or placements important, or earnings, or say research, faculty, whatever factors are important. Our algorithm understands those important details that you have and converts it into a score called match to expectation. And we created the select platform. So you could access that again for free. You could utilize GradeRight.com and go through that data points and check, and compare different offers that you have and what the data says and what the real data out there, which was researched across, say, government data, the research data that, that got public, and the university specific data that the university publishes. We put together all of them to make sure that you have a simple decision tool to compare these universities that you have. So that is something that you could use too. The entire effort is focused on maximizing your return, getting the most, spending the least amount.
Yeah, I can sort of vouch for that, because I did the preparation for my master's all on my own, and I also did university research, and that was a tedious process. I wasted hours and hours and weeks together looking through information on universities, because there's too much. The information is too scattered. There's no consolidated platform where you get all that information on the same page. You don't have to look everywhere and then write it down. I actually maintained a notebook in which I used to keep statistics of every university, and then every day look at 2 or 3 universities, and then in the end apply to one. And I wasted a lot of time. So I think that would be the benefit of GradeRight, that it consolidates all that information into a single dashboard, into a single page, and you don't have to move through, spend hours looking at the different platforms, different stuff, and you can just compare them on a single page.
Right, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for watching that, Utkarsh. You've been kind enough to do that. And some of the students always have a question: should I wait for my final admit to be finalized, basically by yourselves? Say you have 3 admits, until you pick the final admit that you are actually going, people don't apply to loans. That the 2 to 3 points that I want to make sure that you understand, because it would act against you in some cases. Number one, with time, that too in March and at the end of March or so, a ton of students, there are total 1 lakh students who go for masters abroad just to the US, and there are 5 lakh people who go everywhere from India every year nearly. So all of them, about 70% of them actually require some student loans. So it is important to make sure that you apply right. Otherwise, you would end up being part of thousands of applications that are reaching the bank at the end, and your negotiating power decreases. And you cannot really go through a evaluation which will help you finalize the admit in the first place. So rather than waiting, apply early. The other reason to apply early is that you make sure that you leave enough time for banks to process. When so many students actually apply, banks take 1 to 1.5 months. The cheapest offers at times would be public sector banks, and they take 1 to 1.5 months to actually process the application, the legality, the collateral checks, etc. You would unnecessarily complicate the situation and jump to a costlier loan. So it is always advisable to make sure you reach out to the banks and evaluate the banks that work best for you as early as possible. Even if you have just 1 admit, just go ahead and do that and have your options laid out. And then slowly, you would finalize the admit with the help of this feedback and get to your best option. You can change the university later once you have the loan offer. But if you wait for the loan, for the final admit and then apply to the loan, you will lose time, you will lose money. So just be aware of those things.
Always remember, you also have to do all the finances. You also have to get I-20, show the proof of funding, and then you also have to go apply for visa. There's a lot of preparation that goes into these months. So if you can finish up the finances as early as possible, that would be advisable for everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you. And if there are more questions that you have, you could always reach out to us. You could type in on the live chat here if you want us to answer it here. But we are nearly at the end of this webinar, for this week. So make sure that you write to us or reach out to us through our website, and you would find a simple form from us on the website, or we could email you. And if you fill in that application, then we could find you what is the best offer that is present in the market, in including all 40 banks. So we don't just work with our partner institutions or partner banks. We evaluate every single option out there, domestic or international. And primary motive is to make sure you save money. So if you want to know what is best before you jump on to taking the loan, make sure that you check that on the website and get to know what is the best for you. All right. Thank you so much, Utkarsh. It is nearing 12, and I would like to thank you very much for arranging this time over the weekend instead of hiking. And
welcome, sir.
It's a great pleasure to answer any of the questions that you guys have. And in case this is useful, this webinar is useful for you, please continue following our channel, subscribing to it, and staying connected with us. Thank you and have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.